What's going on, guys? My name's Glenn. This is NTT, and this is our sixth video we've made so far. But I just kind of wanted to make this video and send it out to you guys just to talk about comparing each one of the new GPUs that are on the market right now. I mean, this is going to be a busy holiday season, and I know availability has been the bane of 2020 GPU season. But hopefully stock is going to stabilize a little bit more, and you may just be able to get your hands on the GPU you're looking for. But that brings up the question, which one do you want? What's the best choice? And so we don't have third-party reviews on AMD's cards yet, but we have a pretty good idea of where they're going to perform. So I just want to go ahead and compare AMD to Nvidia's card lineup right now, and this is as the current lineup of November 16th, 2020. So let's go ahead and start this off with the 6800, and the MSRP is $580. You're supposed to be getting around 10 to 15% more performance than the 2080 Ti, which means that's the exact same performance that the 3070 has. So in this scenario, the 6800 cost about $80 more MSRP than the 3070. Now, of course, here's the downside, guys. Neither one of these cards are going to be going for that price besides on launch day. You're not finding any more NVIDIA Founders Edition cards out there. So that $500 MSRP, it's a wash, guys. It's not what it is. You're looking at $550. That's what I paid for the 3070 that I had, or up to $650 if you want like a Asus Strix, which is unbelievable, honestly. But that's the name of the game. You know, that's how it's always been, and it will always be. You're paying for a more premium cooler and a factory overclocked card. And that goes the same for the 6800 as well. So its MSRP is $580. Will you find a $580 past launch? That's the reference design from AMD? Maybe, but I doubt it. So we're probably looking more in the line of 600, 620, and that's upsetting because we're walking right almost into 6800 XT price point for MSRP as well. But of course, like I just said, that's going to have the exact same problem as being the reference MSRP is 650. Will we actually find that? Probably not after launch day. Probably not. If you get lucky, you may, but they probably are not going to make too many of these reference designs. They typically don't. And that's because they normally get really close to taking a loss on those. That's why the MSRP is so low, or they do take a loss on them. So that's why they don't make a bunch of them. It's just kind of it makes the MSRP for the cards look lower, makes it more enticing, but you'll never actually pay that because you'll buy an AIB card that's going to cost more. So let's go ahead and compare the 6800 to the 3070. So this one's kind of interesting because we don't know what the ray tracing performance is for the 6800 yet. We have a good indication that it's probably going to be around the same performance as a 2080 Ti in ray tracing. Now, guys, that's actually, if it's true, that's good. That's very, very good. Because the 3070's ray tracing, now, while it's not the exact same card as the 2080 Ti, but the performance is literally almost exactly the same. And the ray tracing is almost exactly the same. Even though it does have fewer RT cores, they're actually doing more work because they're second generation RT cores. So they're basically giving the exact same performance in ray tracing as the 2080 Ti's, more first generation RT cores. So you're not looking at a lead. Personally, I don't think you're looking at a lead in ray tracing performance over the 3070 or the 6800. I think they're going to be right in line with each other. So the next thing to compare is rasterization performance and resolution performance as well. So in 4K, I believe that the 6800 is going to win, and in 1440p and in 1080p. And the other side to this too is that the 3070 is not a 4K card. It is a capable 4K card that is limited in VRAM, so it's not going to do it, guys. The new games that are coming out are requiring too much VRAM for 4K, and I think that the 3070 is going to be fine for 1440p, maxed out settings, ray tracing, DLSS, everything going on there. But as far as 4K, guys, you're probably going to be getting up to 9 and 10 gigs of VRAM at that point, and that's just topping out over what the 3070 offers. Now with the 6800, you don't have to worry about that because that has a whopping 16 gigs of VRAM. And personally, I don't really think that needs the 16 gigs of VRAM because while it is a 4K card, because it will do 4K and it'll do it well, these new games present the same problem, that even though this one has the VRAM needed for it, you're probably going to be looking around like 40 FPS in Assassin's Creed Valhalla on 4K max settings. And that's kind of sucky because apparently the consoles can do 4K 60 on Valhalla. Of course, they're upscaling, so using almost like a DLSS technology on that. It's not exactly the same, and it doesn't work as well. But that's what it's doing to get that 60 FPS, and it's working hard to do it. And with the 3070, you could almost do that. The problem is you're limiting yourself with the 8 gigs of VRAM. If it had 10 gigs of VRAM, it would be A-OK, but it doesn't. And that makes it a really hard card to recommend this holiday season because of that, at least for 4K. If you're going 1440p or 1080p, the 3070 is A-OK, guys. And it'll probably do well up until mid next year. At that point, I think we're going to see that 8 gigs is really struggling on real next-gen titles. But only time will tell. That's just my theory behind it. More and more games are really getting close to cutting out 8 gig cards at max settings 1440p, and that's scary, guys, because I didn't personally think that was going to happen so quick, but it looks like it is, and it's probably going to continue in that trend as well. So the 6800 is taking the crown in VRAM and performance, and as far as ray tracing goes, it's probably going to be the same, so I'm going to call that a wash. I wouldn't even consider it. I think both of them are going to do just what you need them to. So the next part is software stack, and the 3070 takes the cake in the software stack. If you're a content creator, then you're going to want a 3070 in this case, because NVIDIA's software stack for NVIDIA Broadcast is incredible. I'm using it right now. It's wonderful, guys. I actually have an extremely noisy PC right in front of me, and I'm sure you probably can't even hear it because I'm using noise cancellation through NVIDIA Broadcast, and it's incredible. And AMD doesn't have that. Also, if you're a streamer, NVIDIA has the encoder, and it's incredible. It really is. It's really, really good, especially if you don't have a good CPU. So that's nice. AMD still doesn't have that, and that's a bummer. You also get DLSS, so you can upscale, you can upsample, and you can get better performance. And that's great, guys. That's really great. I actually think DLSS is the future of gaming anyway, so I like that a lot. I try to use it in any game that I can just because I like to see how much extra performance I can get and not notice a change in quality on my resolution. So it's actually fun to play around with. I enjoy it, and it's hard for me to tell. It really is. I mean, first version of DLSS was not so hot. Second generation of DLSS is looking good, so I'm excited for the third generation. We might see some incredible gains from that, but the 6800 just doesn't have it, guys. Not yet, at least. It may be coming next year, but AMD needs to put the pedal down on that one because they need to get that out. Okay, and I think that covers the 6800 and the 3070. They're really evenly matched cards, but honestly, I would say go with the 6800 in that class unless you're a content creator. So moving on to the next one, the 6800 XT. And guys, I also want to make clear that I'm an NVIDIA fanboy here. So I know I'm kind of trash talking NVIDIA, and it hurts my soul to do it, but they kind of shot themselves in the foot this year, and I'm not happy about it. A lot of people ain't happy about it, but it is what it is. And I'm just going to tell the truth with it too. So moving on to the next one, we got the 6800 XT, and this is the big boy. This is the one that I think most people should consider if you're in the high end, because it's going right up against the 3080. And we can start this off with just talking about VRAM. The 3080 has 10 gigs of VRAM, which is going to be limiting, more than likely, moving into next year as well because of these new generation games. Once the real new generation games come out, we're probably going to see a much heavier hit on VRAM. And I think AMD took that into consideration, and also they know VRAM sells graphics cards. NVIDIA has never been one to give you a lot of VRAM anyway, so they're playing by their normal playbook here, but the 10 gigs is going to be limiting, and it also costs more. It costs more, it quote-unquote uses more power than the 6800 XT, and it also does get better rasterization performance in 4K. And now both of these cards are true 4K cards, and they're both capable of it because they both have the VRAM needed and the performance needed. So that is exciting. But we're kind of in the same argument here to where NVIDIA has a better software stack, except this time NVIDIA has enough VRAM as well to continue playing on against the 6800 XT. But where it starts to fail is the fact that the 6800 XT has headroom to overclock. And that is scary for anybody that wants a 3080 or thinks the 3080 is the best, because the fact that the 3080 cannot overclock, I mean, it's terrible at it because it's already at its red line. It can't go any further, guys. The 6800 XT apparently has room to stretch its legs, and if it does, if it can gain over 10% performance, then it's walking into 3090 territory, and we've already seen leaks about this, and it may actually be true. We'll have to find out, but if that's the case, then it's going to blow the 3080 out of the water once it's overclocked, and it may have an easy ability to do that too. It may not be hard at all. You may not have to push too much, and it may get up to that 2.5 gigahertz and just clobber the 3080. So the only thing saving the 3080 at this point is Nvidia's software stack as well. And they're the same software stack that the 3070 has. So this one's a little bit harder to recommend one over the other, but the 6800 XT in this case is actually cheaper. And we've seen that the 3080 does not sell anywhere close to the MSRP. You're looking at $50 over at almost everything. I mean, originally, when I first got my first 3080, I think I paid $730 for it without tax. But now that card is running $760, I think. So they've gone up in price. They have, and that may just be due to stock, and that may stabilize later in the year. But this may not be a card you want later next year, because we may have a refresh at that point with higher VRAM counts. So, and Nvidia's been known to do refreshes, not to add more VRAM to them, but to do more performance-based refreshes. But this year they have to compete with a better looking AMD that has more VRAM, so we might see a higher VRAM and performance buff mid next year, possibly even Q1 of next year, but we'll see. So in this case, I think it's the same as before. The 6800 is going to take the cake in pure rasterization performance. It's going to lose in ray tracing this time, because the 3080 actually has great ray tracing, and that's actually a key factor for me. I like ray tracing. I'm expecting it to be incredible in something like Cyberpunk 2077, but most games it really doesn't matter, so it's hard to really say that that's a big part of this, but it kind of is to some people. So we'll go ahead and say 3080 wins by a long shot on ray tracing. 6800 XT is going to win in rasterization in 1080p, 1440p, and 4K if you overclock. Now, you don't have to overclock to get the 1080p or the 1440p win. It just scales better there. But if you're playing in 4K, you'll probably need to overclock to beat the 3080, but you may even get close to a 3090 performance, but probably not like, I don't think you're going to be hitting the same marks. I think you may get close, but I don't think you'll ever actually get there, but only time will tell with that. And then the next part is the software stack. And Nvidia wins hands down on this one. If you're a content creator, the 3080 just makes sense right now. All right, guys. So I think this one's almost a draw. 6800 XT, if you're looking just for gaming, is going to be the better card. I think it's going to age well too, much better than the 3080 will. If you're a content creator, I think the 3080 is the only one you should go for, honestly. I wouldn't even go above this. I wouldn't go below it. The 3080 is a sweet spot, and possibly the 3080 Ti when it comes out, which may be next January. If that comes out and you've got the cash, probably going to cost around $1,000. That may be the real card to get for a content creator or a streamer. But let's move into the next category. This is the final category, the big category. It's almost the useless category in my own opinion. I mean, I am a PC snob. I like to have the very best stuff in my own personal system, but I have a limit of, I don't believe in paying for more things than I need, and I don't think anybody needs a 6900 XT or a 3090, because a lot of people make the argument of, oh, well, I do professional rated things, or I need a professional rated card. And if that's the case, then you need to go for professional level cards and not either one of these, because these are not professional cards. You don't get professional drivers. They're not really worth it. These are gaming cards that are just expensive just to get the best performance you can. And you're also looking at paying $1,000 and above no matter what. No matter who you choose, you're going over $1,000 for these cards. So it's hard to recommend these at all. But if you're in that category, you like to do that, then this one's actually pretty simple. The 6900 XT just wins. I mean, you're looking at $1,000, 16 gigs of RAM, and close to the same performance as a 3090. And then if you have the 3090, you're looking at 24 gigs of RAM, which is incredible. It really is. And top level performance, and also top level power draw. So in this case, we actually know the 6900 XT will draw less power than the 3090. It's also a smaller card, and it also cost $500 less on just MSRP. So I'm not quite sure where the recommendation can come from for the 3090. If the 3090 had professional drivers like the Titan did, I think the 3090 would actually be the one to recommend in this, but it doesn't. So I'm finding a hard place to recommend the 3090 in any light, and also for the 6900 XT, other than just you have the cash and you want the best performance out there. Because if there was a better software stack for the 6900 XT, I would actually say that's a good card to get, because at that price point, if they had real competitors to Nvidia's software stack like right now, that would be the card I was going for actually. But they don't, and we don't know when that's coming, so it's hard to recommend either one. Honestly, guys, I think you should stick with a 6800 XT or a 6800 or a 3080 or even a 3070 if you just don't care about VRAM limitations. And a caveat to that as well is that the 3060 Ti may be coming out in December. And I'm going to do a separate video on that, talking about that. But guys, if you're looking at a 3070, honestly, I would look more closely at the 3060 Ti. It's going to have the same VRAM, but it's more set to 1440p and 1080p, and you'll probably save close to maybe 150 bucks on it, and that sounds more worth it to me. But that's just my personal opinion, and that's it for this video. We've kind of broke down all of these 6 cards and compared them. I hate that AMD is kind of looking like the showrunner here, but Nvidia's got to get their act together. So hopefully they will. Hopefully in the refresh they're going to do, we'll see something different. And also though, I kind of hope that AMD gets a real software stack put together for this too. That'd be game changer for so many people. So I hope that happens. I really do. But anyway, guys, that's it for this one. Closing out. Don't forget to hit that like button. Comment down below what GPU you're looking for this season. I kind of want to get a poll going, see what you guys are actually looking to get, so I can gauge more content in that direction. But thanks for everybody who's listened this long. This has been a long one. Hopefully it's given you some more things to think about, and hope you enjoy it. So I'm out. Peace, guys.